Today on Twin Cam, we're going to be making Melody's interior a genuinely nice place to be for a change. So in the 6.5 months that I've owned this car now, I've never given it a proper interior clean and going over. I've always just kind of hoovered out the carpets a little bit and kind of just lived in the car really. It's full of rubbish. And ever since I've got it, it's been full of stains in the seats and little marks on the dashboard and all that kind of stuff. And frankly, it's made the car look a little bit second rate. And I think this could all come up quite well given a nice little clean. So today we're going to take the seats out, we're going to take all the little bits out of the car that we can and give them a properly good clean and going over, and then we're going to add some other bits as well, because this interior, although it is dirty, isn't perfect just with a clean. So there are a few things that really need to be addressed, and I'm going to turn that camera into vlogging mode and show you around the interior and what's what. So since I got this car, I've just kind of treated it as a car. I've not actually put very much time or effort into making it look nice other than just getting it running and getting it in MOT and all that kind of stuff. So this interior really is untouched from the day I got it, apart from just a couple of quick hoovers and that kind of thing. So with her having a 35th birthday this year, I think it's time to really start addressing some of the issues, and foremost of which is the fact that this seat doesn't have a headrest, and the problem with that is that the headrest tubes are completely destroyed. So that's something we're just going to have to live with. This seat isn't going to have a head restraint. I could bodge it to make it look right, but frankly I'm not going to do that. I think I'm actually going to take that one out so that they match, at least for now, before I either get this fixed or get a new seat or do something else. So I just want it to kind of look all right, and I think if I take the other one out, it will at least look even. So that's the first thing, apart from the fact that these seats are horrendously stained. So they're going to be cleaned, obviously. And then we've got the dashboard and stuff. So this steering wheel, as I mentioned in the first video I did on Melody, this steering wheel is fine. It's the standard one that this Metro had from factory, but it's not my favourite Austin Rover steering wheel. So this steering wheel is actually going to go. I'm going to get a new steering wheel on. Since you last saw it, it's had a new instrument cluster because the fuel gauge gave up on the original. So this isn't the original cluster. That mileage is about 10,000 under what it really should be, and it's a different colour, but I think the red as opposed to the orange suits the red paintwork a bit better. So that's why I went for a red one, because I think it works. And red is going to be a theme of things like the steering wheel, so wait to see. There are other things that need doing as well. So I'm missing a pedal rubber there, so we're going to do pedal rubbers. There's an extra little Metro badge that's been put down in the centre. No idea why, no idea who put it there, but it already has a Metro badge. It has Metro badges everywhere, so I'm going to get rid of that. Yeah, it just needs a really good clean. It's missing a dash mat. Don't know whether it would have had one from factory, actually, being an L. I assume it would have done, but I have a dash mat to go there to make it look like most of the Metros. What else do we have? But yeah, generally it's just a little bit dirty. So we're going to get things cleaning. Oh, there are a few blanks, like the blanks for the seat belts that aren't there. So we're going to be doing stuff like that as well. What else have we got? Oh yeah, we've got a big one, which I'll get to in a second. And also we've only got a little push button medium wave, long wave radio, which is fine if you want to listen to TalkSport or 5 Live, but I don't really. So, so I want to get a proper radio on it. That's not what we're doing today, but that's something for the future. I'd like to get a cassette deck in it. Something period correct, but something a little bit higher spec than that. But the big one is these seats. So I've mentioned the head restraints and mentioned the fact that they're all stained and stuff, but there's another problem as well. These seats clearly have been out the car before because they've been put back in the wrong way round. So that is the winder to adjust the backrest on this driver's seat, and it's jammed right up against the seat belt, the inertia reel housing thing, whereas it should be in the centre where there's all this room. So the seat belts don't go there because the seats are closer to the doors than they should be. So the seat belts don't actually really fit in that little space there. The seats don't quite sit right anyway, and you can't adjust the backrests. So when we take the seats out, I'm going to put them back in the correct way round. It's all these little things that just annoy, that I suppose the reason they're like this is because it's a 35-year-old car and things do happen. Things come out to be cleaned and don't quite get put back right, but the car's here and that's the important bit. So today, let's actually get making this a nice car. Before we begin whipping the seats out, we'll give ourselves a bit more wiggle room by taking the steering wheel off. The beauty of an old car is in its simplicity, and to get this wheel off, a 33mm socket and a flathead screwdriver are all you need. I've replaced the washer, the nut and its little cover so that I don't lose them, and the wheel itself can go in the purity box, or the bin, whichever you're less annoyed by. I thought it'd be good next to just clear out all the rubbish, and most of the stuff that was in the car when I got it was still there. I really have just driven it, and I have to show you this period correct touch-up pen. If this is the one that's been used to touch up sections of the car, then I can confirm that it's a completely different colour to the one Melody came out of the factory in. So let's get to the seats, and just like we did with Melvin, our first job is to remove the parcel shelf. This shelf isn't the correct one for Melody. It's actually from a late Mark III or Mark IV Metro. Melody is a Mark II, and this one won't be going back in. She'll be getting the correct flint coloured unit when we reassemble. Unlike Melvin, Melody is a mid-spec Metro, so she gets a 60/40 split rear seat, and things therefore are mounted slightly differently. After folding down the 40 section, we can begin unbolting it. There are just 3 Torx bolts that secure the hinge bracket to the floor, 2 in the centre and 1 near the door. The 60 section is much the same, 2 in the middle and 1 close to the door. Just like on Melvin, the front seats have 4 bolts, 1 on each corner, but with the advantage of 5 doors, there's a little less faff involved. One thing that is different is the lack of a cross brace at the back of the seats. The K-Series car has a bent metal tube to brace all the rear mountings from door to door. So now I have a clean slate to work from, we can have a look at the condition of the carpets, and they're not too bad, they're just grubby, as I said, especially at the front where obviously feet have been, and no mats. That's another thing we're going to address today. We're going to put some mats in the car. I was going to take the carpet out, but actually I don't think I'm going to bother because it's a lot of work just to faff about taking the carpet out, and with mats in the front and a good hoover it should be fine. It doesn't need the kind of attention that the seats need, so there we are. But there are a few things we've found. I found that little touch-up pen like I've shown you, just some wrappers, leaves and stuff, and a little pencil that clearly is from a previous owner. So nothing surprising, no money unfortunately, that's a bit of a shame, but there we go. So first thing we're going to do is actually attack the glass, because I think we should start from top to bottom. That kind of makes sense to me. Only the highest quality of automotive content on this channel. I'm sure you're all yearning to see some glass cleaning action, but here's all you're going to get. I've also gone over all the windows with Rain-X's anti-fog stuff. I first used this on Melvin a few years ago, and only once or twice have I ever suffered with a misted screen. Part because of the Metro's ventilation, and part because of this product. As I worked my way around to the back of the car, I nearly forgot to get rid of this lolly air freshener. It still smells, amazingly. Back to the front, and with a bit of Auto Glim interior cleaner, I wiped down the dash. It was just full of dust, but there were also a few marks across it, but I was pleased to see that most of them came off. One that didn't was this bit of a sticker that was left over on the steering column shroud. Once I took it off, I noticed there was a scar beneath. I have no idea what could have happened, but I think I do have a spare one of these in my stash, but that'll have to wait for another day. One of the biggest dust traps in a Metro's interior is around the radio, so I broke out some of my brushes to try and get out as much as possible. The vents are much the same. Only 2 of these on Melody. The centre 2 were taken up by a clock and a coin tray, and it's all the worse for it. That additional Metro badge on the centre console is next to go, and if you don't have a collection of these little plastic trim removal tools, I'd beg for you to get some, because unlike a screwdriver, there's no chance of wrecking unobtainable plastics. So we've cleaned the dash, got rid of all the rubbish, and off camera I've also addressed things like the doors, the seat belts, the headlining and the sun visors. But before we turn our attention to the mounty seats, we need to do some vacuuming. First is the place you can't see, in the spare wheel well. There's no spare wheel because the one Melody had was metric, as her road wheels all originally were, and is therefore useless. I don't want to need the use of a spare wheel, only to have to use one that's bigger than the 12-inch wheels she sat on and has an ancient tyre. That's just dangerous. What I need is a 12-inch steel wheel from a Mark I Metro, so if anyone watching has one, then please let me know. Now we can get to the carpets themselves, and this being a Metro L, it's a thicker pile than in Melvin, and it's really rather nice for a mid-1980s economy car. When Melvin gets his restoration, I might need to see if I can source an up-spec carpet. One of the things I did want to do here was to have a look at the floors and check for rust. But fortunately, I've been sent a few pictures by the previous owner of what the floors look like only a short while ago, and they're mint. Absolutely perfect. In fact, despite appearances, this car is rock solid underneath, so it certainly deserves some love. With this knowledge, I thought it wasn't worth lifting the carpets today. With everything vacuumed out, the carpet looks great. There's still a bit of ingrained dirt in the driver's footwell, but I'll be putting mats down anyway, so I'm not overly fussed. It's clean in all the areas you can see, and I'm more than happy enough with that. So let's turn our attention to the seats. First, more vacuuming. And with them free of dust and loose dirt, we can see the problem. They're properly grim. So let's address that. As with Melvin's seats, I'm using a broken wet vac. The trigger for the solution is broken, so I have to cover the whole seat with it, then turn off the machine and disconnect the reservoir, then use the suction. But with a couple of goes on each seat section, they're looking a heck of a lot better. And rather than looking grey with just a hint of a pattern, you can now actually see the blue and red trim. Told you they were grim. And that's only after one go on the rear seats. The fronts were even worse. With the seats clean, we can reassemble. It's easier in post. And the seats are now the correct way round, so I can actually recline them. So, now everything is clean and lovely, we can get to the interesting bit, and that interested is in massive inverted commas because this is still absolutely pedantic and trying to get the car, with some of the bits I have at least, getting it kind of as nice as possible. Again, this is all in inverted commas because if I was doing it properly, I'd have spent time on the boot, for example, but the boot carpet is, not the boot carpet, the vinyl-y thing, the boot on the boot floor, is horrendous, but it's a boot and I'm going to use it, so what's the point in making that look nice? As long as the rest of the interior is good, we're all good. And I'm not doing anything about the head restraints either. Anyway, I digress, I'm rambling. Motorbikes. I am not putting the old parcel shelf back in the car, I am putting in this one because the parcel shelf that was in it was incorrect for the car. It was for a Mark III Metro, which meant it didn't have this thing that fastens it to the seat back when you fold the seats down, to keep everything nice and compact and flat and stop it rattling, and it also didn't have this little bit of rubber on the end, and what this piece of rubber is used for is to hold the parcel shelf against the boot lid when the boot is closed, and that means that the parcel shelf, so to say, doesn't just rattle up and down like that. So I've been living for the past 6 months with a parcel shelf that just smacks up and down and rattles like hell, and it's really annoying over any bump at all. So this should, sounds like a tiny little part, should seriously improve the refinement of this little car. Hopefully. We're not done with the boot though, as we have some blanking plates to sort out. From factory, this car should be fitted with rear seat belts, but it just about sneaks beneath the law, as it was manufactured days before they became a legal requirement. At some point, the belts were removed. No idea why. And I will be fitting some when I find them. But for now, we have these ugly bolt holes, and I've managed to find these little plastic rectangular blanks to fill the space. They make it look complete. If you watch some of my early videos on Melody where I introduced you to the car and went over the problems and such, you might remember that the car is missing a couple of door estucheons. Well, it's not actually missing them, they are somewhere, but they're snapped and cracked and horrible and won't go on. So that looks awful and I need to fix it. But the problem, as I said in those videos previously, is that because they are so brittle and so badly designed on A-series Metros, they don't exist. They're not that common anymore. So they're not the kind of thing that someone will just have 50 of them sitting around because people want them. Now there is a company that reproduces them, but they are not in the original factory colour. They're in just a stock black or something like that, and that isn't perfect. And I don't want to buy some and paint them, but fortunately I have come across two of them, genuine ones, which are perfect. And 2 is just the number I need, so we'll do the video on this one and I'll just put the one in the back on my own. There's no point in watching both. Now, the reason these break so often, well, there are 2 reasons really. First one is that they are badly designed with very thin plastic, and over time having a metal screw holding them on causes them to break. It's that little bit there that holds the screw in. It's not quite beefy enough and so it breaks. But second of all is people tightening them too much. Because if I feed this one through, I'm going to put the other one on here actually because this one's in slightly better condition. They don't even fit the door properly. How Austin Rover is that? It's just class, absolute class. But the other reason is that people tighten the screw too tight. And when you tighten a screw too tight, when there's very brittle plastic around it, you're going to crack the plastic. That's kind of what happens. So when I put this on, I'm not going to tighten it too tightly. That'll do. I mean, it doesn't fit, but it's better than not having one. And so the final thing is just to nick the old cap for the screw and plonk that on there. I would say very good, but it doesn't even fit. It's better. Oh, Austin Rover. Ridiculous. So now we're getting down to the stuff that is more noticeable. I mean, that door escutcheon on that door is quite noticeable for me, I suppose, but they're not the things that I'm always looking at while I'm driving around in the car. So, first things first, I have a dash mat. Now, as I said before, I'm not sure whether a Metro 1.3L would have had one of these from factory. I think it should have done, but there you go, there's a dash mat, so that's better. And second of all, something I have wanted for ages, a set of mats. So these, they're just generic mats. So the mats that I took out of Melvin, actually, if you remember rightly. So they are a lot better than having no mats at all. And there's one for the other side as well. Now, for the steering wheel. The only reason I didn't want that one that was already on there was just because it's a bit too big. It's not a very good looking steering wheel anyway, but it's huge, and yes, that makes parking nice and easy for 87-year-olds, but I'm not an 87-year-old, so I don't need that functionality, and it's like driving a bus, made even worse by the fact that the way the Metro steering wheel sits is like a bus. So instead, I have this steering wheel, and again, there's more Melvin stuff coming in here, because if you remember, this steering wheel is from a Mark 1 MG Metro 1300, and it was for quite a while on Melvin. So I've always loved this style of steering wheel. Not necessarily the MG one with the leather wrapped and the red stitching, although the red stitching does suit the red paintwork of this car. But this style of steering wheel is just my favourite. It's what I got on Melvin, but a plastic one that suits a bit better. And yeah, I like the steering wheel a lot. So this is going to go on the car. So this is going to be the most important thing we've done today, because it's going to make the biggest difference to how the car feels. To be honest, I've wanted this steering wheel on the car ever since I got it, but I've just been lazy. So, MG centre out. Now I might have to adjust this once I've driven it a little bit to yeah, there you go, that's seated properly. Yeah, I'm going to have to probably adjust this once I've driven a bit to actually get it straight, because the car's just been reversed onto the driveway. Lovely stuff, and then that little cap on the top. Now, issue. That says MG on it. This car ain't an MG, so that doesn't really work. Fortunately, I have this. Exactly the same centre, just instead of an MG badge, it's got an Austin Morris badge, which is much more fitting. Not quite period correct, because period correct it would just say Metro on it, like it did. But that's not the right centre, so let me move that around a little bit. There you go. Now, seat's in the wrong place, obviously, because I've had it out, but that feels so much better. Awesome. The steering wheel is definitely smaller, and it sits slightly more proud because the other one's a slightly deeper dish, so it does feel slightly different. It's a little bit more bus drivery actually than it was, but the steering wheel is much smaller and therefore much nicer, so I'm happy. Just the one more job to do, and that's to address the lack of a clutch pedal rubber. Metros have the same pedals as Minis, but they changed the design of the rubber in 1990, so these are different to Melvin's but correct for a 1987 Mini or Metro. They're a little more of a faff to fit than Melvin's because these ones don't have a cutout in the rubber, so need to be really stretched to fit around the pedal. But with that done, I'm very happy with our progress. It's all the little things that make the difference between a car feeling well loved and one that's just a hack, never mind the manky seats. I've also rescued the head restraint tubes and roughly fitted them into the passenger seat, so at least they don't look broken anymore. And you'll notice that I've ditched both restraints for the sake of being even. I'll address that at some point in the future. But for now, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then please do click like and subscribe to TwinCam as well. I'm forever indebted to my wonderful Patreon supporters, so if you'd like to support me that way, then please do follow the link in the description. And I'll have more videos coming along soon.